He was already walking away, and I was still holding the ring. My fingers trembled, my chest burned, but I couldn't move. I was 29 years old, standing in a Miami mansion dressed for a wedding that wasn't mine, staring at the man who had once been my whole world. His name still tasted like fire on my tongue, Ethan Cole. The billionaire everyone wanted a piece of. The man who had once promised me forever, then ripped it away before I could even fight for it. Years had passed, but standing in that room, with the sound of champagne glasses and laughter spilling in from the garden, it felt like no time at all. I told myself I wouldn't look for him tonight. That I'd come for family, to smile, to play my role. But then I walked into the wrong room, and there he was, alone in the dim light of an inner bedroom, leaning against the edge of a dresser like he was carrying the weight of the world. And in that instant, every scar I'd buried deep split wide open. I couldn't breathe. My body remembered him before my mind did. The scent of his cologne, the sharp cut of his jaw, the way his eyes always seemed like they were searching for something he couldn't name. And he looked at me, just once, before his gaze broke away, cold and unfinished. I should have turned around. I should have left. But instead, I froze, my pulse beating so loud it drowned out the music outside. Lena. His voice wasn't loud, but it shattered me. He hadn't said my name in years. Not since the night everything fell apart. I wanted to be strong, to stand tall in my heels, to show him that I had built a life without him. But my heart didn't care about dignity. It cracked like glass the second I heard him breathe me back into existence. Before I could answer, the door swung open, and that's when I saw him, his son. A boy with a white shirt too big for his frame, black hair slightly curled, and eyes that cut through me like lightning. He looked about 10, maybe 11, and when his face turned toward me, my knees nearly gave out. Because it wasn't just a boy. It was a reflection. My reflection. Same high cheekbones. Same deep brown eyes. Same stubborn curve in the mouth. It was me. A boy version of me. My throat closed, my hands shaking so badly I pressed them into my dress. Ethan froze, too, watching me as if he knew exactly what was happening in my head. His son took a step closer, polite, quiet, but curious in a way that made my stomach twist. "Dad," the boy said softly, like he was pulling Ethan back from a place only the two of them knew. Ethan straightened, slipping into the armor he wore so well. "Daniel, go find your uncle. I'll be there in a minute." The boy, Daniel, hesitated, his eyes still locked on mine. Then he gave the smallest nod, turned, and walked back into the hall. The silence he left behind was heavier than the ocean. I stared at Ethan. My voice was barely a whisper. "You didn't tell me." His jaw tightened, the lines of his face sharper than I remembered. "It wasn't your place to know." My breath caught. "Not my place. He looks like." My words failed. The truth was too raw to shape into sound. His eyes flicked to mine, but only for a second. "Don't." That was all he said. One word. "Don't." As if he could erase what I had just seen. But nothing could erase that face. The boy's resemblance to me was no accident. It couldn't be. My whole body trembled, torn between disbelief and the ache of knowing deep down. The noise of laughter from the garden pushed through the walls, a reminder that life was carrying on just outside this room. But mine had stopped. My heart was lodged in a past I had spent years trying to escape. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth. But most of all, I wanted to scream. Instead, I pressed my nails into my palm until it hurt. I would not give Ethan the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. Not tonight. Not here. So I turned on my heel, walked out of that room, and left him standing in his silence. But as I crossed the hall, I felt the boy's eyes again, watching me from the staircase, studying me. And in that moment, I knew this night was only the beginning. The boy was still there when I stepped into the hallway. He hadn't gone to find his uncle like Ethan told him. He leaned on the railing of the staircase, his small fingers gripping the wood, his eyes fixed on me, as if I carried a secret he had been waiting his whole life to hear. I forced myself to keep moving, my heels tapping against the marble floor louder than the music outside. My chest was tight, my throat raw, but I managed a polite smile as if nothing had happened. The last thing I wanted was to draw attention. He followed me with his gaze, tilting his head the way I used to when I was curious about something but too shy to ask. My skin prickled. Every step I took away from him, I felt his stare sink deeper into me. I reached the end of the hallway, pushed open the double doors, and was hit with the sudden warmth of laughter, champagne, and music. The garden glowed under strings of white lights, the air thick with roses and expensive perfume. Guests in gowns and tuxedos twirled on the dance floor. And still, I couldn't shake the image of him, Daniel, standing so still at the top of the stairs, a mirror of myself I had never expected to see. I made my way toward the bar, gripping the glass stem of the first champagne flute I could grab. I didn't drink much anymore, but right now, I needed something to quiet the storm in my chest. Lena. A familiar voice pulled me back. My cousin Marissa rushed over, her dress flowing like spilled wine. She hugged me tight. There you are. Everyone's been asking for you. I forced a laugh. I just needed some air. Air. She gave me a playful shove. You've been hiding, haven't you? Don't think I didn't notice. She didn't know how right she was. Hiding was the only thing I'd done since walking into this mansion. Hiding from Ethan. From the boy. From the truth I wasn't ready to face. I excused myself with a smile, slipping away before Marissa could press me. I wasn't ready for family chatter. I wasn't ready for anyone. My eyes scanned the garden for Ethan, but he wasn't there. Not with the guests, not near the band, not anywhere in the glow of lights. And then, like fate refusing to let me breathe, Daniel appeared again. He stepped out from the hallway doors, slow and careful, his eyes locked on me with a kind of determination that felt far too old for his age. He walked straight to me. "You're Lena," he said, his voice soft but steady. I froze, my hand tightening around the stem of the glass. "Yes," I managed. "My dad said you used to know him." His words were innocent, but the weight behind them pressed hard against my chest. "Used to." Those words sliced me open. "Yes," I whispered. "A long time ago. He studied me. Really studied me, like a scientist piecing together a puzzle. Then he tilted his head, the same way I used to do when something didn't add up. "You look like me," he said simply. The world seemed to stop. My heart slammed against my ribs. There it was. The truth in its purest, most dangerous form, spoken from the mouth of the boy himself. Before I could answer, Ethan appeared. He moved quickly, his hand resting firmly on Daniel's shoulder. "Daniel." "Enough." His voice was calm, but I heard the edge under it. Daniel didn't look at his father. His eyes stayed on me, full of quiet rebellion. Ethan's grip tightened, and finally, the boy gave in, letting himself be steered away. I stood frozen, champagne trembling in my glass, my heart screaming 1,000 questions I wasn't brave enough to ask in front of all those people. But deep inside, I already knew the answer. That boy wasn't just his son. He was mine, too. and Ethan had kept him from me. The music blurred into noise, a jumble of laughter, clinking glasses, and violins that didn't belong to me anymore. My body moved through the crowd, but my mind was stuck on that boy's face. His words echoed inside me, sharp and unshakable. "You look like me." I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't unsee the truth staring back at me with my own eyes. I found myself drifting to the far edge of the garden, where the lights didn't reach, where shadows hid me from curious glances. I pressed a hand against the stone wall, the night air cool against my burning skin. Why hadn't he told me? Why had Ethan kept something this big from me? All the years I'd spent piecing my life back together, convincing myself that losing him was just heartbreak, not betrayal. And now, this. A living, breathing piece of me walking around with his last name. I wanted to scream, to march back inside and demand the truth in front of everyone. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because my voice would shake. Because my hands would betray me. Because deep down, I was terrified of the answer. Lena. His voice again. The one name that still had power to undo me. I turned, and there he was. Ethan stood a few feet away, his tie loosened, his face unreadable. He had always been good at that, locking his feelings away where no one could reach them. Except once, long ago, when he let me in. I hated that I still noticed the little things about him. The way his shoulders filled a suit. The way his hair fell just slightly out of place when he was restless. I hated that my heart hadn't learned the lessons my head had screamed for years. "You shouldn't have come here," he said quietly. My laugh was sharp, broken. "You think I knew? You think I walked in here planning to see him?" His jaw flexed. He didn't answer. "You let me stand here, Ethan. You let me look at that boy, and you didn't say a word." My voice cracked on the last syllable. His eyes darkened. "It wasn't your choice to make. My choice." I stepped closer, my heels digging into the grass. "That's my face he wears. My blood. Don't you dare tell me it wasn't my choice." For the first time, his mask slipped. His chest rose, fell. His hands curled into fists at his sides, like he was holding himself back. "You don't know the whole story." "Then tell me." The words ripped out of me, louder than I meant, rawer than I wanted. A couple nearby turned their heads, then quickly looked away. Ethan's gaze flicked past me, making sure no one was listening. He stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat of him again, the ghost of the man who once loved me with a fire I thought could never die. But his voice was low, steady, merciless. "Not here." The space between us felt like a battlefield. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to tear him apart for every year, every lie, every stolen moment I could never get back. But as he turned and walked away, disappearing into the mansion with the same silence he had left me with years ago, all I felt was the weight of unfinished love crushing me. And then, from the corner of the garden, I saw Daniel again. Standing half-hidden behind a pillar, watching us with those same eyes that belonged to me. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The truth was already there, alive and undeniable, staring straight at me. He left me in the garden with a silence that burned hotter than fire. My hands were shaking, but my mind was louder, dragging me back to where it all began, years before this night, before the lies, before the distance. I was 21 then, still trying to find myself in a city that swallowed girls like me whole. Miami was fast and glittering, a place where dreams either caught fire or drowned in the waves. I had just lost my father, and the grief left me fragile, raw, and angry at the world. That's when Ethan walked in. He came to the funeral with my brother's business partners, a stranger in a black suit who stood out because he didn't just shake hands and leave. He stayed. He saw me. I remember thinking how unfair it was that someone could look so composed in a room full of broken people. And then he made me laugh. One joke, whispered just loud enough to cut through my tears, and I hated him for it at first. But later, I realized it was the only thing that kept me breathing that day. From then on, it was like we couldn't escape each other. Coffee dates turned into midnight drives along the coast. We built our own world, just the two of us, hiding from the noise of everything else. I was the poor girl with too much heart. He was the billionaire heir who never knew what it meant to be truly seen. Together, we were fire and gasoline. But even back then, the cracks were there. His family didn't like me. They didn't say it outright, but their smiles were sharp, their questions pointed. What are your plans, Lena? Do you really think you can handle this life? I brushed it off, told myself love was stronger than disapproval. And Ethan, he would always whisper in my ear, ignore them. You're all I want. I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. One night, under the yellow glow of streetlights, he held me close and told me he couldn't breathe without me. His lips brushed my ear as he swore we'd make it, no matter what anyone said. I held him tighter, my heart begging to believe. But I didn't notice the way his eyes drifted sometimes, like a man carrying secrets too heavy for me to touch. The betrayal came slowly. A missed call here. A cancelled dinner there. Excuses that didn't add up. And then, the night that shattered everything, when I found him in his office with papers he didn't want me to see. A contract. A name. A signature. It was about me. About us. His family had paid him off, in ways I still don't fully understand. Money. Power. Protection of their empire. All I knew was that my name was written down like a mistake to erase. And when I looked at him, waiting for him to deny it, to fight for me, he just closed his eyes. That silence broke me. I left that night with nothing but the clothes on my back and the bitter taste of betrayal on my tongue. He didn't follow me. He didn't call. Weeks turned into months, and every day I told myself I hated him more. But hate is a tricky thing. It hides love inside it, sharp and ugly, refusing to let you go. Years later, when I heard he'd moved on, I told myself it didn't matter. That I was free. But freedom was lonely. Freedom was hollow. And deep down, some small part of me waited, even when I swore I never would. And now, standing in that mansion, staring at his son, the boy who wore my face, I realized the betrayal was even deeper than I had ever known. He hadn't just let me go. He had taken something from me, something I could never get back. My pulse quickened as a memory clawed its way to the surface. A night I had tried to bury forever. The last night I saw him before it all fell apart. He had come to me drunk, desperate, banging on my apartment door like a man being hunted. His tie was loose, his eyes glassy, but when he saw me, he broke down. He held me like he was drowning, whispering that he was sorry, that he wished things were different, that he needed me one last time. I should have pushed him away. I should have slammed the door. But I didn't. I let him in. I let him stay. I let him break me all over again because I couldn't resist the way he said my name like it was a prayer. And then, in the morning, he was gone. That was the last time. Or so I thought. Now the truth stood in front of me in the form of a boy with my eyes. That night hadn't just been goodbye. It had been the beginning of a secret I was never allowed to know. My hands shook as the pieces finally fit together, as the weight of years collapsed on me all at once. Daniel wasn't just his son. He was mine. And Ethan had built a life without me, a family without me, while I walked around half alive, never knowing what I had lost. The air in my chest turned heavy, impossible to swallow. My world tilted, every memory rewriting itself in the shadow of this truth. I gripped the wall to steady myself, but nothing could stop the ground from shifting under me. Because now, there was no going back. And Ethan knew it. Regret is a strange thing. It creeps up on you when you least expect it, wrapping itself around your throat, forcing you to taste everything you tried to bury. As I stood in that mansion, regret was all I could feel. Not just for the years I lost, but for the silence I allowed to grow between us. I replayed every decision in my mind. If I had fought harder that night, if I had demanded answers, if I had refused to walk away, would things be different now? Would I have known about the boy sooner? Or had Ethan planned it this way all along, to keep me shut out, to raise a child in shadows I wasn't allowed to enter? I caught myself staring across the garden again. Daniel was back at the edge of the crowd, holding a plate of cake but not eating, his eyes glued to me as if I was the main act in a play he'd been waiting years to see. That look unsettled me more than anything. Children weren't supposed to carry eyes that heavy, that knowing. I felt the sting in my chest, the pull of something I didn't want to admit. An ache I thought I had destroyed long ago. Maternal. Protective. My blood recognizing my own, even when my mind wanted to deny it. I pulled away, weaving through the crowd toward the far corridor that led to the quieter wing of the mansion. I needed air. I needed space. But halfway there, I heard footsteps behind me. "You shouldn't run from him," Ethan's voice said, steady but low. I spun, anger flaring hot. "Run. You think that's what this is?" His eyes were tired, like he hadn't slept in days. "He's curious, Lena. He's smart. He'll put it together faster than you think." The sound of his name in Ethan's mouth, spoken with that quiet pride, was too much. "You had no right," I snapped. "No right to keep him from me. No right to decide I didn't deserve to know." His jaw tensed. "You don't understand. Then make me understand." My voice broke, echoing down the empty hallway. "You owe me that much." He closed the space between us, but not too close. Just enough that I could see the war in his eyes. "When you left, it wasn't safe. My family, they would have torn you apart, Lena. They wanted you gone, forgotten. If they had known." He stopped, his throat tightening. I stared at him, searching his face for the man I once loved. "So you let them erase me? You let them take my child and keep him from me? That was your answer." He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The silence was confession enough. The rage that rose in me was different this time. It wasn't about betrayal between lovers. It was about something deeper, rawer. It was about blood. About a bond so ancient nothing could sever it. "You don't get to decide who I am to him," I whispered, my hands trembling. "You don't get to erase me." His eyes darkened. "You think it's that simple? You think walking back into his life now won't tear him apart?" For a moment, I faltered. The truth of his words pressed on me. What would it do to Daniel to suddenly learn his entire life was built on lies? What would it do to him to know the woman he had only just met was more than a stranger? But the ache in my chest wouldn't let me retreat. "You already tore me apart, Ethan. I won't let you do the same to him." His face hardened, but beneath it, I saw fear. Real fear. And that unsettled me more than his anger ever could. We stood there in silence, a storm raging between us, until a soft voice broke through. "Dad." I turned, and there he was again. Daniel stood at the corner of the hall, his eyes darting between us, sensing the tension, feeling the weight of it without understanding. Ethan straightened instantly, his mask snapping back on. "Go on, Daniel. I'll be right there." But the boy didn't move. His gaze lingered on me, almost pleading. And in that moment, I knew he felt it too. The pull. The connection. He didn't know why, but he knew. My throat ached. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the distance, to tell him everything. But I stayed frozen, trapped between truth and fear. Ethan's hand tightened at his side, like he was ready to step between us if I moved. The boy's eyes softened, then he turned slowly, disappearing back down the hall. And I stood there, shattered, knowing that every second that passed made the secret more dangerous. Because secrets don't stay buried. Not forever. And this one was already clawing its way to the surface. I could feel the silence of that hallway sink into my skin long after Daniel had walked away. My legs carried me toward the garden again, but my thoughts stayed glued to that boy's eyes. They were too sharp, too curious. Children that age weren't supposed to read the room like that. He wasn't just looking, he was searching. And the frightening part was, he was searching for me. Back outside, the chatter of the guests came crashing back, but I barely heard a word. My gaze kept drifting through the crowd, scanning for him. Then I spotted him sitting alone by the fountain, skipping stones across the shallow water. Everyone else was busy clinking glasses, and there he was, tucked away like the world didn't fit him. My heart stuttered. I knew that feeling. I walked over slowly, cautious like I was approaching some fragile piece of glass. He looked up when he heard my steps, his small hands freezing mid-throw. His eyes stayed locked on mine, not fearful, not shy, just steady. "You don't like parties either, huh?" I asked, my voice softer than I meant. He shrugged. "Too loud. Too many people pretending." The words hit me like a knife. Pretending. That was his world already. "I know what you mean," I whispered. For a moment we just sat there, both watching the ripples in the fountain. My hands itched to reach for him, to brush his hair out of his eyes, but I forced them still in my lap. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly. I swallowed hard. "Lena." He tilted his head, studying me with a sharpness that didn't belong to a boy his age. "Why do you look at me like that?" The question knocked the air out of me. I tried to smile. "How do I look at you?" "Like you know me. But we just met." His honesty cut deeper than anything Ethan had said. I leaned closer, keeping my voice steady. "Maybe I just see something familiar." He blinked at that, as if trying to place me in some corner of his memory. "You sound like you're hiding something." The corner of my lip trembled, but I forced it into a small laugh. "Maybe I am." We sat there in silence again, and I could feel his guard lowering. His shoulders relaxed. He even kicked off his shoes and dipped his toes into the water. Watching him, I felt the ache in my chest grow unbearable. Every instinct screamed to tell him, to claim him. But my mind warned me, too soon, too raw, too dangerous. "Daniel." Ethan's voice rang from across the lawn, sharp but calm, the way a man calls when he needs to regain control. The boy looked over his shoulder, then back at me. "That's my dad." The word dad stabbed into me. I forced a nod. "I know." He slid off the fountain edge and stood, brushing off his pants. But before he left, he leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. "I think you're lying about something." Then he was gone, running toward Ethan, who stood stiff and watchful, his eyes flickering between us like a hawk that had caught sight of a snake in the grass. My throat burned, but I kept my face blank, even as Ethan's arms settled around Daniel's shoulders, steering him back into the crowd. I knew then that it wouldn't be long before the truth broke open. Later that night, when the guests began to leave and the laughter turned to the clinking of glasses being cleared, I wandered into the study, needing a moment alone. The room smelled of cedar and old paper. On the desk, half buried under folders, was a sketch. I froze. It was a drawing, rough but careful, of me. My face. My hair. Even the small curve of my smile. I lifted it with shaking hands, my vision blurring. On the bottom corner, scribbled in a child's hand, was a name. Daniel. The room spun. My knees weakened. He knew me, not because anyone had told him, but because something in him remembered. My image lived in him, even without the truth. The door creaked open. I turned sharply, clutching the drawing to my chest. Ethan stood there, his face shadowed by the dim light. "You shouldn't be in here," he said quietly. I stepped forward, holding out the paper like an accusation. "He draws me, Ethan. He knows. Don't tell me he doesn't feel it." His jaw clenched, his hand tightening on the doorknob. "That's exactly why this is dangerous." I shook my head, my voice breaking. "The danger isn't me, Ethan. The danger is the lie. And you're running out of time before he forces it out of us." For the first time, I saw real panic in his eyes. Not anger. Not control. Fear. And in that instant, I understood something terrifying. He wasn't just afraid of me telling Daniel. He was afraid of what Daniel might do once he learned the truth. The walls of that mansion felt smaller by the second, pressing in around us. Because the secret wasn't safe anymore. Not from the boy. Not from me. Not from anyone. And before this night ended, I knew one thing. Someone was going to break. The storm that had been brewing all evening finally broke inside that house. Not with thunder or lightning, but with the sound of raised voices behind closed doors and the weight of a truth that could no longer be held back. I could feel it in the way the air pressed against my skin, thick and charged, like every wall knew what was about to happen. Daniel had gone upstairs, but not without looking back at me one more time, that sharp, unblinking gaze that cut deeper than words. I had to clutch the banister just to stay upright after he disappeared into the shadows. My chest ached with the pull of him, my son, my blood, my everything, yet I couldn't claim him. Not yet. Ethan didn't waste time. He followed me into the study, closing the door hard behind him. The slam echoed through the room, rattling something inside me. His eyes burned with that mixture of anger and desperation that always seemed to live just under his skin. "You went too far," he hissed. "He's asking questions now." I held up the drawing again, my hand trembling. He was already asking questions before tonight. This isn't me pushing him, it's him pulling. He knows. Ethan. He feels it. Ethan moved closer, his shadow swallowing me. And if he knows too soon, what then? You think it'll be some beautiful reunion? You don't know him like I do. I laughed bitterly, though the sound was half a sob. Don't you dare tell me I don't know my own child. I carried him, I bled for him, My voice cracked before I could finish. He grabbed my arm, not roughly, but with a grip that made it clear he wouldn't let go. His voice dropped, low and heavy. You think love is enough? You think he'll just fall into your arms? Lena, he's been told a story his whole life. You rip that away, and he won't just hate me, he'll hate you too. The words cut deep, but they didn't shake me. Instead, something inside me hardened. I yanked my arm free and stepped back. I'd rather he hate me for the truth than love me for a lie. For a moment, Ethan said nothing. His jaw worked, his chest rose and fell, and I could see the cracks in him widening. He was losing control, not just of me but of everything. A sound broke through the tension, a creak on the stairs. My head whipped toward the door. Ethan froze. We both knew what it was before the handle even turned. The door eased open, and there he stood. Daniel. Barefoot, his hair mussed from bed, holding something small in his hand. My heart slammed against my ribs when I saw what it was. The silver locket. My locket. He looked between us, his young face drawn tight with suspicion. His voice was quiet but steady, far too steady for a boy his age. Why does she have this? Ethan's breath caught. I felt mine stop altogether. That locket had been gone for years, hidden, buried with my silence. But now it gleamed in Daniel's palm like a weapon. Daniel, Ethan began, his tone smooth, rehearsed, the way he always tried to calm the storm. It's just a keepsake. Nothing you need to worry about. But Daniel's eyes cut past him and landed on me. Why do you look like her? His words came sharp, accusing, desperate. Why does she look like me? I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My hands shook at my sides. Ethan stepped forward, trying to shield him, but Daniel pulled back, clutching the locket to his chest. His voice rose. You lied to me. The silence that followed was unbearable. Ethan's face went pale, his lips parted, but no words came out. And then Daniel turned those eyes on me again. Tell me the truth, he demanded. My whole body trembled. Every instinct told me to run, to hide, to protect him from the weight of it all. But it was too late. The lie was already shattered. I opened my mouth, the words clawing their way up my throat, and in that split second, I knew there was no turning back. Whatever came next, none of us would ever be the same. The secret was about to be spoken aloud. And just as I drew in the breath to say it, Ethan stepped forward, his voice hard, almost frantic. Enough. Daniel, go back upstairs. But Daniel didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on me, waiting. And that was when I realized, this wasn't just about me or Ethan anymore. The choice wasn't ours to make. It was his. The air in the room throbbed with the weight of it, and before another word could leave my lips, I knew the night was about to break open in a way none of us could control. He was staring at me like the world had stopped moving. That locket dangled from his hand, catching the light, cutting through the silence like a blade. Daniel's voice was steady, but I heard the storm building underneath it. Tell me the truth. Ethan stood between us, his shoulders tense, his body blocking me like a shield. His voice cracked as he tried to sound firm. Daniel, this isn't the time. But Daniel didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on mine, wide and searching, demanding. My breath trembled in my chest, every part of me breaking under his stare. I could have lied. I could have stayed silent, let Ethan weave another excuse. But I couldn't. Not anymore. The words ripped out of me like they had been waiting for years. I'm your mother. The room collapsed into silence. Ethan's face went pale, his jaw clenching so hard I thought it might snap. Daniel's hands shook, the locket slipping through his fingers and clattering to the floor. For a long moment, he didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then his voice came out in a whisper, fragile and cracking. No. That's not true. She died. Dad said. His eyes darted to Ethan, then back to me. You're lying. Tears burned my eyes, but I stepped closer, holding out my hands though I was afraid to touch him. I never left you. I never stopped loving you. My voice broke as I looked at Ethan. He made me stay away. Daniel's chest heaved, his face twisting as anger and confusion crashed together inside him. He turned on Ethan with a fury that was far too big for his small frame. You lied to me. Ethan raised his hands, his voice soft, pleading. Daniel, listen to me. I did what I had to do to protect you. You were too young. You couldn't understand. But Daniel's shout cut through the room. You said she was gone. His fists clenched, tears spilling down his face. You said I didn't have a mom. My knees buckled. I pressed my hand against the desk just to stay standing, watching my son break under the weight of the truth I should have given him long ago. Ethan tried to step closer, but Daniel shoved him back with all the strength in his small body. Don't touch me. His voice cracked. You don't get to touch me. The rage in Ethan's eyes flickered into something else. Panic. Fear. He looked at me then, as if this was somehow my fault, as if my confession had torn apart the only thing holding his world together. Daniel turned to me, his face wet and raw, his voice trembling. Why did you let him lie? Why didn't you come for me? The question gutted me. I pressed a hand to my chest, fighting for words that would never be enough. I tried, baby. I tried every day. I never stopped wanting you. He kept me away. He made me invisible. Daniel shook his head, stumbling back, his eyes darting between us. I don't believe either of you. His voice broke into a whisper. I hate you both. The words landed like a knife. My legs nearly gave out. I wanted to run to him, to hold him, but the distance between us felt like miles. Ethan reached for him again, desperation cracking his calm mask. Daniel, please. You don't understand what this means. It's not safe. Stop. Daniel screamed, his voice tearing through the house. He bolted for the door, his footsteps pounding against the floor as he ran down the hall. I lunged forward, but Ethan's arm shot out, blocking me. Don't. His voice was sharp, commanding. I shoved him back with everything in me. Get out of my way. He's my son. And for the first time, Ethan didn't fight me. He just stood there, breathing hard, his face twisted with a fear I had never seen in him before. I ran after Daniel, calling his name, my heart hammering in my chest. I found him at the front door, struggling with the lock, his small hands fumbling in panic. He turned when he heard me, his eyes wild, his chest heaving. Don't come closer, he warned, his voice breaking. I froze, every part of me aching. Daniel, please. Just let me explain. Please. But before I could move again, he wrenched the door open and disappeared into the night. The cold air rushed in, sharp and merciless, as I stood frozen in the doorway, watching him vanish into the dark. My heart screamed to chase him, but my legs felt like stone. Behind me, I heard Ethan's footsteps, steady and slow. He's gone, he said, his voice hollow. And in that moment, with the night swallowing my son, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The night swallowed his small figure, and with it, the last piece of control any of us had. I ran barefoot into the cold, my breath breaking into white clouds, my voice raw as I screamed his name. Daniel! Please! The dark gave me nothing back, no sound of footsteps, no cry, no answer. Just silence and the echo of my own desperation. Behind me, Ethan came out slower, his face pale, his voice calm but sharp. Running after him blindly will only push him further. I spun on him, my body shaking with rage. He's out there alone. He's a child. He's my child. Ethan's jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists at his sides. "He's mine too." The words cracked like thunder between us. For a heartbeat, we just stood there in the cold, two parents staring at each other like enemies, while the boy we both claimed was somewhere out in the dark, breaking apart. I shoved past him and ran toward the gate, the gravel cutting into my feet. My chest ached with every breath, my ears straining for any sound. But the night stayed merciless. No footsteps, no voice, nothing. Ethan caught up to me, grabbing my wrist. "We can't search like this. We need the police." I ripped free from him. "And tell them what? That we lied to a child for years and now he's gone because the truth came out? Do you know what that looks like?" Ethan's face twisted. For once, he had no words, no plan, no calm mask to hide behind. And in that silence, I realized how unprepared he was for this moment. He had controlled everything for so long, until now. I ran down the street, calling Daniel's name until my throat burned. Every shadow felt like it could be him, every rustle of the trees made my heart jump. I searched until my legs gave out, until I collapsed against a lamppost, sobbing into my hands. When I finally looked up, Ethan was standing across the street, watching me. His face wasn't angry anymore. It was something worse. Defeated. Afraid. "He won't come back to either of us tonight," he said softly. I shook my head violently. "Don't you dare say that." But deep down, I knew he was right. Daniel wasn't running to me. He wasn't running to Ethan. He was running from both of us. We searched until the sky began to pale, until the edges of dawn stretched across the horizon. By then, exhaustion had hollowed me out. My body ached, my voice was gone, but the fear was sharper than ever. When we finally dragged ourselves back to the house, the silence inside was unbearable. The place felt empty, haunted by his absence. Every corner seemed to echo with his voice, his questions, his pain. I sat at the kitchen table, my head in my hands, when Ethan set down his phone. His voice was low. "I called someone. A private investigator. He'll find him." I looked up at him, fury boiling in my veins. "You don't get to fix this with money. You don't get to control this like you've controlled everything else." He leaned forward, his eyes dark and tired. "Do you think you're the only one who loves him? Do you think this isn't tearing me apart too?" The words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. For a moment, I saw it. The cracks in him, the father terrified of losing the only thing that gave his life meaning. But then I remembered the years he stole from me, the lies he fed our son, and the sympathy turned to ash in my mouth. "You don't get to play the victim," I said, my voice trembling. "You did this. You built this lie, and now it's destroying him." Ethan's hand slammed against the table, making me flinch. His voice broke into a shout. "And what were you going to do? Walk into his life one day and claim him like nothing happened? You think that would have hurt less?" My breath caught, my heart pounding. For a moment, I almost saw his point. But then the image of Daniel's face, twisted with betrayal, filled my mind, and I knew the truth. Nothing could have hurt worse than the lie. The sound of tires crunching on gravel cut through the tension. Ethan and I froze, our eyes snapping toward the window. A black car pulled into the driveway, its headlights still glowing in the pale morning. I rose slowly, my chest tight, as the car door opened. And there he was. Daniel. His clothes were dirty, his hair wild, his face streaked with tears. But he was standing. Alive. Breathing. Relief slammed into me so hard I nearly fell. I rushed toward the door, but stopped cold when I saw who stepped out behind him. A woman. tall, sharp-featured, her hand resting on Daniel's shoulder like she had every right to it. Her eyes found mine, and something in them made my stomach twist. Daniel looked at me, then at Ethan, his face unreadable. His voice was quiet, but it carried like a knife through the still morning. "She says she knows the truth too." And just like that, the ground shifted under all of us again. The woman's hand lingered on Daniel's shoulder like a claim, like she had been waiting years for this moment. Her eyes stayed fixed on me, sharp and cold, but her smile was faint, almost rehearsed. Daniel stood between us, his small frame stiff, like he didn't know which way to lean. Ethan moved first, stepping out onto the porch. His voice was clipped, defensive. "What are you doing here?" The woman tilted her head, her gaze flicking to him without losing that edge. "I could ask you the same." My pulse roared in my ears. I didn't know her, not in the way I knew faces tied to my past, but something about her carried weight. She wasn't a stranger, not in the way strangers should be. Daniel clutched the locket tighter in his hand, as if he knew the moment was heavier than words could hold. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. She let the silence stretch, her lips curving into a smile that made my stomach twist. "Someone who's tired of the lies you two keep telling him." Daniel's head snapped toward her. "You said you'd tell me everything." Ethan's face went white, his body tightening like a wire pulled too far. "You talked to him?" His words were venom, but underneath, I heard fear. The woman's gaze didn't waver. "He came to me. You left him wandering in the dark, confused and broken. You let him find his own way to the truth." She shifted her eyes to me. "And children don't forget faces, even ones they've been told to erase." I staggered back, my chest caving in. Who was she to speak like she knew him, knew me? My voice cracked. "What are you saying?" Her smile widened, cruel in its calmness. "That I was there. That I know how Daniel came into this world. And that neither of you have the right to keep playing God with his life." Daniel turned toward me, his eyes burning with questions. "Is she telling the truth?" The walls closed in. My hands shook. I opened my mouth, but Ethan's voice cut through, hard and sharp. "Don't listen to her. She's twisting this." But Daniel pulled away from him, his small body trembling. "I'm sick of everyone lying. I just want to know who I am." The words shattered me. I felt them in every bone. I wanted to run to him, to hold him, to tell him everything, but the weight of Ethan's stare pinned me in place. He was daring me to open my mouth, daring me to rip the last shred of control out of his hands. The woman's voice slid into the silence, smooth and deliberate. "He deserves the truth. All of it." Ethan's mask cracked. His voice shook with rage. "You don't get to decide that." Her eyes narrowed. "Neither do you." The air between them sparked like flint. I could see it, an old wound, an old secret, something they both carried but never said. And Daniel stood between them, his face twisted with confusion and fear, caught in a battle he never asked for. I stepped forward, my voice breaking. "Stop. You're tearing him apart." But it was too late. The fire was already spreading. Ethan's voice dropped low, almost a growl. "If you say one word." The woman didn't flinch. "What will you do? Lock me away like you locked her away? Pretend I don't exist too?" My heart stopped. My head spun. "Lock me away." My knees buckled as the pieces started fitting together, jagged and sharp. Daniel looked at me then, desperate. "Mom, what is she talking about?" The word mom fell from his lips like it had been waiting there, buried under years of silence. My vision blurred with tears, but before I could answer, Ethan moved. He grabbed Daniel's arm, pulling him back toward the house. Enough. We're done here. Daniel fought against him, thrashing, shouting. No. I want to know. Let me go. The woman stepped forward, her voice cutting like glass. You can't hide him from the truth forever, Ethan. He'll hate you more for every second you try. Ethan spun on her, his grip on Daniel tightening. Stay away from my son. Her smile vanished. For the first time, her face hardened, her voice turning sharp as steel. He's not just your son. The words dropped like a bomb, freezing the air around us. My breath caught, my heart slamming in my chest. Ethan's face drained of color. Daniel's eyes widened, darting between us. What does that mean? The woman's gaze slid to me, piercing, unforgiving. Tell him, or I will. My throat closed. My body trembled. I could feel Daniel's eyes on me, feel the weight of his need, his demand, his breaking heart. And in that moment, standing in the pale light of morning, with Ethan's hand gripping him tight and the woman's voice pressing like a blade against my silence, I knew there was no way out. The truth was coming. And once it was spoken, nothing in our lives would ever survive it. The air felt heavier than it should, like even the trees around us were holding their breath. Daniel's chest rose and fell fast, his eyes wide and wet as they bounced between me, Ethan, and the woman. He didn't blink, like if he did, the answer he needed might slip away. My lips parted, but nothing came. Every word I'd been keeping locked inside me twisted into a knot in my throat. I wanted to reach for him, to give him something, anything, but Ethan's grip on his arm was like a chain, pulling him back into silence. Daniel jerked against it. What does she mean? His voice cracked, raw, cutting through the tension like broken glass. What does she mean I'm not just your son? Ethan's face was stone, his jaw tight. He didn't answer. He only pulled Daniel closer, as if holding him tighter could keep the truth from spilling into the open. Don't you dare, Ethan hissed at her, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. The woman folded her arms, her chin tilting in defiance. You think you can control this? You've been feeding him half-truths his entire life. Do you really believe he won't see through you? Daniel's fists balled at his sides, his whole body trembling. Stop talking like I'm not here. Someone tell me what's going on. I felt my own knees weaken, my body swaying with the weight of his words. This wasn't the time, it wasn't the place, but his pain was tearing me in half. Every instinct screamed to tell him, to free him, but Ethan's stare burned into me, daring me to open my mouth. I whispered his name, my voice so small I almost didn't recognize it. Daniel! He snapped his head toward me, his eyes bloodshot, begging. Please. The woman's voice came like a hammer. He deserves to know who he belongs to. Ethan exploded, his voice thunderous. He belongs to us. To me and her. Not to you, not to anyone else. The woman's laugh was short and bitter. Is that what you tell yourself? That a lie becomes true if you shout it loud enough? Ethan stepped forward, fury in every line of his body. You weren't supposed to come back. You were supposed to disappear. Her smile was gone now, her face stripped bare of any softness. I tried disappearing. But you can't erase blood. You can't erase me. Daniel stumbled back, his hand still clutching that locket like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Blood. His voice broke again. What does that mean? I reached for him, my hand shaking, but he stepped away. My touch was no comfort now, not with the storm that was tearing him apart. "Don't you see it?" the woman whispered, softer now, almost tender. Her eyes locked on him with something I couldn't name. "Look in the mirror. Look at your eyes. You carry me whether you want to or not." The silence after her words was unbearable. Daniel's breath hitched, his chest heaving, and I could feel the ground slipping out from under all of us. Ethan finally spoke, his voice rough, low, almost breaking. "Enough. We're leaving." He tugged Daniel toward the house, but Daniel wrenched free. His voice shook the air. "No. I'm not moving until someone tells me the truth." The woman stepped closer, her voice steady, cutting through Ethan's attempt at control. "The truth is this, Daniel. You are my blood. You're mine." The world stopped moving. The sound of the words echoed, sank deep, and split open everything we had tried to keep closed. Daniel's mouth opened, but no sound came. His small body swayed as if the weight of the words had pushed all the air out of him. He looked at me then, his eyes wide, shattering. "Is it true?" My heart collapsed. The tears I'd been holding back burned hot on my cheeks. I wanted to deny it, to save him from the storm, but my silence was the loudest answer I could give. Ethan stepped between us all, his body shaking with rage. "She doesn't matter. None of this matters. You are ours, Daniel. Do you hear me? Ours." But Daniel was already slipping away from us in his mind, his face pale, his shoulders hunched. The ground he thought was solid had crumbled, and nothing I said could hold him steady. The woman's voice struck again, low and final. "You can't erase me from him. You can't erase the truth." Ethan turned on her, his fists clenched, his whole body trembling. "If you don't walk away right now, you'll regret it." The way she smiled then, it wasn't victory, it wasn't joy. It was something darker, like she knew the fire had already spread and couldn't be put out. Daniel bolted. He tore past all of us, running into the yard, his small frame vanishing into the dark edges of the night before I could even scream his name. I stumbled forward, my voice ripping from my throat. "Daniel!" But he didn't stop. He was gone. And in that silence, the truth we had all tried to bury finally cracked the ground wide open, leaving us stranded on the edges of it, unable to take it back. He was running. His feet slapped against the cold ground, the sound of his breath ragged in the night. I could see the outline of his small body against the dark, fading farther and farther until even my screams couldn't catch him. Daniel didn't look back. He didn't slow. He just ran as if the world he knew had already burned down behind him. My chest ached, the air too heavy to breathe. I stumbled after him, my hands trembling, my voice raw. "Daniel! Please stop." But the night swallowed my words whole. The only thing louder was Ethan's angry voice behind me, sharp and full of fear. "Let him go." Ethan's shout cracked through the yard. "Chasing him will only make it worse." I spun toward him, tears streaking my face, fury rising with my desperation. "He's a child. He needs us." But Ethan's face was hard, his fists clenched like stone. "What he needs is the truth. What he needs is for her to stop poisoning him with her lies." The woman stepped out of the shadows, her arms folded tight. Her voice was soft, but it carried weight. "They're not lies. And you know it." Ethan snapped. He lunged toward her, his words rough and violent. "You should have stayed gone. You should have left us alone." Her chin lifted, defiant, her eyes burning with something both broken and dangerous. "You can't erase me, Ethan. You tried for 12 years. But blood always finds its way back." And with that, The night seemed to tear apart. When Daniel finally stopped running, it wasn't because he wanted to. His legs gave out beneath him, and he collapsed onto the cold dirt of the empty road at the edge of town. His small fingers gripped the locket so tight it cut into his palm. He stared at it, at the tiny photo inside, his breath shaking, his heart breaking in a way a child should never have to bear. I found him there minutes later. I dropped to my knees beside him, reaching, but he jerked away from me, his eyes red and swollen. "Don't touch me," he whispered. His voice was small, but it hit harder than any scream. My heart shattered into 1,000 sharp pieces. "Daniel, please, listen to me." His gaze cut through me, fierce and trembling. "She said she's my mother. She said I'm hers. And you didn't deny it. You just stood there." I opened my mouth, but the words stuck, heavy and useless. "You lied to me," he said, his voice breaking. "All this time, you lied." I reached for him again, but he stood and backed away, his hands shaking as he clutched the locket. "I don't even know who I am anymore." The silence after his words was louder than thunder. The days that followed felt like walking through broken glass. Daniel avoided me, avoided Ethan. He stayed locked in his room, the locket always hanging from his neck, a reminder that he couldn't escape. Meals went untouched. Laughter never came. The boy who used to light up our home had turned into a ghost of himself. I watched Ethan pace the kitchen one night, his face tight, his voice low and sharp. "We need to end this. She can't be around him anymore." I shook my head, my body trembling. "It's not that simple. She's his blood. He can't just erase that." Ethan slammed his fist against the counter, his anger spilling over. "Blood doesn't make a family. Love does. And we've given him everything. Everything." But the truth hung heavy in the room. Love wasn't enough anymore. Not when lies had built the foundation we stood on. The woman didn't back down. She came closer each day, finding ways to be near Daniel, whispering things I couldn't hear, planting roots that I couldn't rip out. Daniel listened. Not always with trust, but with need. A need I couldn't fill. And then came the night when the choice we had all been avoiding finally crashed into us. Daniel stood in the middle of the living room, the locket glinting in the light, his small shoulders stiff. His eyes flicked between me, Ethan, and her. "I can't live like this," he said. His voice was steadier than it should have been. "I can't keep pretending. I want to know the truth. All of it. Right now." The air froze. Ethan's jaw tightened, his fists curling. "Daniel." "No." Daniel's voice cracked the air. "You don't get to control me anymore. You don't get to decide who I am. If you love me, you'll tell me the truth." My chest heaved. My vision blurred with tears. Every part of me wanted to protect him, to shield him from the pain, but he was right. He deserved more than half-truths and silence. He deserved his story. So I told him. I told him about the night he was born. How the woman standing in front of him had given him life, but hadn't been able to stay. How Ethan and I had stepped in, raising him as our own, loving him with everything we had. I told him about the choices, the sacrifices, the lies we told ourselves just to survive. Each word cut me open, but I didn't stop. By the end, Daniel's face was pale, his hands shaking, his eyes darting between us. "So all of you, all this time, you just pretended?" His voice broke. "You made me think I was safe, but it was all a lie." I tried to reach for him, but he stepped back, his voice rising. "I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know who to trust. and I don't know if I can forgive you." The woman stepped forward then, her hand outstretched, her voice soft. "You don't have to decide now. Just know this, you're mine. You'll always be mine." Ethan growled low, stepping between them, his anger like fire. "You don't get to claim him. Not after everything." But Daniel shook his head, tears streaking his cheeks. "I'm not yours. I'm not hers. I'm not anyone's. I'm me. And I don't even know what that means yet." The words hung heavy in the air, heavier than any silence before. That night Daniel didn't sleep in his room. He packed a small bag. He walked to the door. "I begged him not to," Ethan shouted. The woman smiled like she'd already won. But Daniel didn't look back. He opened the door, stepped into the night, and left us all standing in the ruins of what we thought was unbreakable. And just like that, the house felt empty. The echoes of our lies, our choices, our love, it all collapsed into silence. And somewhere in that silence, I knew the truth we had all tried to avoid: nothing would ever be the same again.